Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully the lunch isn't going to send you into a post-lunch stupor, because this panel, I should have started that by saying hopefully the hospitality out there isn't going to stop you from enjoying the presentation on hospitality in here. Hospitality is increasingly becoming vital as the craft beer industry matures, and finding a path forward with good hospitality is ever more important. To present the next panel looking at hyperlocal hospitality, we have one of, I would describe, the guns of hospitality, who is going to introduce three more guns of hospitality, and that's Justin Joyner from the local tap house. Justin probably needs no introduction to anyone that's been following the development of the craft brewing industry, and particularly the hospitality element of that. And he is a specialist in developing not only high-performance teams, but very highly regarded hospitality environments. So Justin, without any more ado, I'll let you introduce the rest of your panel of hospitality experts.
Thank you, Matt, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be up here. Great to have everyone back together after 4 years or however long it's been. My name's Justin Joyner. I'm one of the co-founders from Stomping Brewing Company, and I also head up the hospitality project group for the IBA, and it's the hospitality project group that put today's presentation together, or panel discussion together. Today we're talking about hyperlocal hospo. So it was great to see Bernard this morning and Rich have so much positivity about opportunities and the outlook for the industry. But I think the reality that we're all experiencing at the moment is some pretty serious headwinds on the wholesale side of things. Tap points are hard to get. Shelf space is at an absolute premium. So we wanted to come at those challenges with a bit of a positive outlook on what we can concentrate on. And I think also cognizant of the fact that amongst those challenges is also an opportunity, and that opportunity really we see is in the consumer sort of appetite and trend for local. Increasingly, people want to know, who made their bread or coffee or their spirits, and they want to meet the brewer, or they want to see the process of the beer being made. And we think that's where the tap room and the brew pub experience really comes into it. So we want to take a really positive spin on using the tap room or brew pub, or whatever you want to call your hospitality element to your brewing operation, as a really positive thing for your brand and for your consumers. So that's what we're here to talk about today. We've got a crack team that we've put together that covers geographically covers the continent, and also has a wealth of experience. We're certainly not sitting up here preaching as experts. We've had a crack at a few things, and we've made some monumental mistakes, as well as had a few wins along the way. So we're just here to share some of those stories, perhaps, and talk a little bit about what we do in our various businesses to really elevate the hospitality element of what we're doing. So without any further ado, we'll introduce the panel. We're going to start by them introducing themselves with their name, the brewery they work for, and their role, and answering a couple of questions. What gets you out of bed in the morning, work-wise? And also, what about your job keeps you awake at night? Dino, the man who I met about 10 years ago when you came over to Victoria and opened Little Creatures in Geelong. How are you, mate?
Hey, JJ. Hey, everyone. How are we doing? So my name is Dean Romeo. I work at Felons Brewing Co. in Brisbane, not too far from here. And my role at Felons is brand director, which I guess specifically kind of oversees our hospitality operation and team, our approach to sales and marketing. What gets me out of bed in the morning? I don't know. I have a specifically about work, right?
Yeah.
Because generally I wake up and I have to get out of bed because it's good to feel alive. I'm sure you guys all know what that feels like, especially today with the beautiful sun outside. Lately what's been getting me out of bed is, we have such a large team at Felons in different varied roles and departments, and it feels really special to just jump out of bed and be able to contribute to that culture and that tribe that's formed in our business. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely a dominating factor, which encourages me to jump out of bed. Also, my 8-year-old kicks me in the head pretty regularly, so that's always one.
What keeps you awake at night?
What keeps me awake at night? Not much. I can fall asleep pretty quickly. Probably safety, as always, in this game. Hospitality is always tethered to a manufacturing facility in our space. So, safety and well-being and just overthinking the different possibilities in that space probably keeps me up. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Dino, and welcome. Our next panellist is from Beer Farm in Margaret River, Emma Locke, who I work with on the hospo project group as well. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, my name's Emma. I am the General Manager over at Beer Farm in WA. We're based in a very regional area. We're down in Metricup, about 3 hours south of Perth. So my role as GM there pretty much oversees the hospitality and events arm, as well as the production and logistics arms of the business as well. So what gets me out of bed in the morning? Very similar answer to yours, Dean, I think. For me, it's always going to be the people. It's going to be the team. Like a lot of my strengths, I think, within my role are very much around relationship building. So building teams, seeing teams achieve great things, but also outside of Beer Farm as well. A lot of the people that within the industry that we get to interact with, the suppliers, a lot of people in this room at the moment. It's really special. The most special thing about the industry, I think.
Nice one. Thanks, Emma. And a man I was a bit worried about today. I didn't want to put a microphone in his face because he's so shy and retiring, and I thought he might get dazzled by the lights. But Craig Williams, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. So I'm the general manager at Moffat Beach Brewing Co. Have been with the team for a few years now, and have really kind of, I guess, helped build the team from a small brew pub, literally selling beer out of our own taps by the beach, to a lot bigger, a much bigger brewery that's now got beer in cans and distributed quite broadly. For me, what gets me out of bed in the morning, firstly, it's pretty much my bladder. And then from there, I think and then it's the shower. And in the shower, what I like to do in the shower, true story, is that's where all I get my creative idea for the day or my inspiration, and I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I think there's the thing that I love about this industry is the creativity and the collaboration and the conversations that you have with people that spark something else that leads to that and gets to this. And yeah, sure, as Justin said, it's not always going to fly, but that's where it comes from. But and what keeps me awake at night? Probably the last two presentations that we just saw with business of beer, and it's definitely trying times at the moment. And I guess part of the reason for this panel and what we all want to discuss was like, how can we all use that creativity, find new ways to engage people and continue our collective success.
Thanks, Craig. And it's clear that my concerns about you and a microphone were unfounded, but actually what I was most concerned about was the 45-minute
there you go.
time limit. So anyway, we'll get into it. So we're just going to have a chat about hyperlocal hospo. We're going to talk a little bit about the what and the sort of the purpose of your hospitality part of your business, what the offer is, who the customers are. We're going to talk a little bit about how we go about elevating that experience, whether it's the theatre of service, whether it's events, staff training, those sorts of things. We'll touch a little bit on insights as well from data and point of sale and those sorts of things. There is a presentation just after this from Mr. Yum, which will sort of elaborate on that. And then touch a little bit on the impact of the taproom / brew pub when it comes to your local community and collaborations and industry alliances and things like that. So let's get into it. Dino.
Hello.
Tell us why it's important to have a bit of a purpose about what you do when it comes to the brew pub.
I think that purpose is the fundamental reason for being, and if you don't have a clear grasp on what your purpose is, you're going to struggle. Something that I've learned pretty or I guess time and time again. I think positioning is really your idea that underpins your purpose. I think you really need to invest that time with you and your team, if you haven't already, to understand why you're doing what you're doing. You got to ask that why in a few different corners of your business. I think why you're here, why you're doing what you're doing, why beer, why are you brewing the way that you are, why are you approaching your packaging or your logo or your branding the way that you are, what are you actually trying to achieve, not only from a hospitality perspective, but from a greater brand perspective. How are you pulling that together? I think just dissecting that and having your whole team involved in that process and listening, and really fleshing and teasing out, I guess, a bit of a purpose statement or a mission statement is fundamentally the most important thing that you can do to make sure that your ship's on the right track. For Felons, I feel like our purpose is pretty simple and we're constantly working on it. By no means is it perfect, but it's to create and celebrate moments that capture what we believe is the good life. And it really just kind of was born from the copious amounts of hours and days walking in and around our venue when we first opened and looking at the way that people use the venue and how they would sit out there on the banks of the Brisbane River and they would just get lost in their gaze. And that kind of, I'm even getting shivers just thinking about that moment right now. That is like the ultimate inspiration for any kind of company. They were just, they didn't have a worry in the world. They were sitting there with a nice, icy cold, locally brewed beer that they could literally reach out and touch the tank of. And yeah, it just kind of sunk from there, I guess, in terms of purpose. So I really encourage everybody to take that quite seriously. I think, there's a rising number of brands and breweries that are doing it really well and from a really sharp, elevated point of view. And I think, just know who you are and know who you're trying to talk to is probably best advice I can give in that space. And positioning is the tool. So those questions, I believe, is the way to kind of tease out that purpose for you. We all probably have a similar purpose, going back to Bernard Salt at the start of the day. What a great chat that was. And his kind of comments, and he constantly circled around to that lifestyle kind of place. So what we're doing is not really that dissimilar from one another. I think it's about finding your little place in there and backing yourself and going for it.
Nice one. Em, tell us a little bit about at your sort of philosophies on how important it is to know who your customers are and what they actually want.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we worked on a lot at Beer Farm, and it's really something that helped us shape our customer experience and where we really invested our time, our energy, and all of our resources. There's a good bit of research that I did into, it's actually a study from Harvard Business School, with McDonald's, which I would encourage anyone to have a look at after this. It's called Milkshake Marketing. And it's just making sure that you're understanding why your customers are coming to you, what they're trying to achieve being in your venue, and just making sure that you're kind of asking the right questions to get a better understanding of where to focus your time. And I think it's about building value in your venue. And I think if there's, you're spending time and energy on something that's not bringing any value to your team, it's not bringing any value to your customers, why are you doing it, I think it's just really kind of focusing that customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, you've got tentacles in a million pies, and having run Gabs, you've got a really good exposure to a whole different sort of bunch of breweries and brands and businesses. And most recently, you've been in a regional town, a fairly large one, but a regional town. Tell us a little bit about how you've had to kind of rethink things with a regional sort of environment in mind versus a metro one.
Well, first of all, Justin, apparently we're one of the fastest growing cities in Australia, so just watch out. I think we're talking about hospitality here, and probably everyone in this room either has a hospitality offering or is thinking about one or whatever it might be. And I've been lucky enough to be in a few positions that has exposed me to different ways of thinking about hospitality. You can go the basic route and have your bartender there and pour the beer and have your tap decal, and that's kind of as far as the transaction goes. But there's so much opportunity to build on just that one simple kind of occurrence and take it to the next level and add in those little 1%ers that step it up. I think that regional question, so we've got Stomping around the local tap house, Felons, megalith of brewing and river gazing, and beer farm, very different locations, businesses, audiences. What I've found is thinking about Moffat Beach Brewing and being on the Sunshine Coast, tourism destination, what might work for the local tap house in St Kilda would probably fail miserably in my venue. Whereas things that I might put on, events and functions and so on, you probably wouldn't even, consider doing things like that. But
we'll get to rock, paper, scissors a little bit later, I think.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors. But I guess what you were saying as well, Emma, like it's about. It doesn't have to be so much about the brewery or the brand or what I find. If you consider your space as certainly an extension of your brand, but it's a hospitality space first and foremost. So if you were setting it up just as a non-branded, non-brewery pub, you'd be thinking first and foremost about what do my local audiences want from this venue? Do they want a coffee shop? Do they want a bar? Do they want a place where they can bring their family, music? Is it a nightclub? You'd be thinking about that first. And at Moffat Beach, we try to really think about. I was blown away when I first got there, and our beachside venue down at Moffat Beach is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. I've never seen another brewery open at 6 a.m. serving coffee. I thought, wow, that's pretty. I was blown away. It was very unexpected. But it works, and it works well for that audience. It works, we'll put on family nights, we'll put on, because we've got a huge growing family community who've all migrated to the area, we'll put on, we do an event called Brew Pub Chorus, which taps into another local community group of, there's a show choir that my wife is part of, they love it. So we'll always be thinking about the audience first, how can we create something that caters to that audience and just go out and do it. And not a lot of it, to be honest, is about the beer. It's about the audience.
Thanks, Craig. One of the things that we focused on when we started Stomping Ground was the idea of the branded experience. I think when I was in my early 20s, anyone that went to Dublin on holiday, backpacking or what have you, had to go to the Guinness Brewery in Dublin. And if you went there, you'd have a pint of Guinness, and it'd be the best pint of Guinness that you've ever had anywhere in the world. And I think the next best from an Australian point of view was Little Creatures in Freo. And anyone, certainly in Melbourne, that went to Perth for a holiday, you didn't really go to Perth unless you went to Freo and you had a pale ale and you had some oysters and you were overlooking the water and all that sort of stuff. And I think that is kind of the essence of what our brew pubs and tap rooms can do for a brand. They can actually transport people to a place where they're actually experiencing the beer in the best way that they possibly can. So whether it's technically better than the beer that they're having that's on tap at the pub down the road is kind of irrelevant. What is relevant is the fact that in a brew pub / tap room kind of environment, you can control all the elements. You can decide what the music is. You can decide how warm or cool it is in the venue. You can decide how knowledgeable or otherwise the staff are and how well they're able to direct people to beers that might suit them. And you can also make sure that the beer is the absolute freshest that it could possibly be anywhere in the world. So I think from our point of view, that's why we decided to have a full-blown hospitality offer at a brewery. And it's something that we still sort of strive to achieve every day and strive to make that experience of our brand the best it can be anywhere in the world at our venues. I think we all sort of share in one way or another that kind of philosophy and are trying to elevate that. And a really key part of that is kind of the theatre of everything, the theatre of the actual service of the beer or the experience, and actually seeing it made and smelling the ingredients and potentially meeting the brewer and all those sorts of things. Dino, tell us a little bit about your sort of thoughts around the theatre of the venue and how it can play into the brand.
Yeah, for sure. So it's all theatre, baby. Hospitality is a dance. And I take that pretty seriously, and I know the team do as well. So we've got a pretty clear outlook on how our theatre works. I think all of your venues, you should look at them as theatres. And we look at beer as our hero or our star, and we look at our team members as the actors that are bringing to life that show around the hero. And then there's all those kind of ancillary elements to that as well. And I guess it kind of taps into a little bit of that storytelling narrative and that spiritual home kind of reference. I think, again, coming back to that purpose, it's a single-minded idea. Everybody's there to elevate and celebrate the beer, which we've, dedicated quite a significant part of our footprint to manufacturing and to producing and to try and connect as many consumers as we can with that process and that product. So yeah, that's kind of my outlook, I guess, on that side of things. And I think you just never got to kind of lose a grasp on that. Just constantly defending that, I guess. And I implore all of you to have somebody in your team that is constantly defending that. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to lose your way. I was listening to a podcast on the way up here, and one of the quotes that I'll mention here is, "If you confuse, you lose." And I feel like if you try and stack on too many things, not from an events perspective, just from an everyday kind of operation perspective, if you confuse and muddy too much messaging, then yeah, you might lose. So yeah, be careful of that.
I think the other thing as well is that don't underestimate how exciting it is for someone to be in a brewery. Like, we get a bit kind of desensitised, even jaded at times because you've seen it all before. But for some people, they're walking to a brewery for the first time and it's super exciting. And to see someone actually brewing a beer is even more exciting. And then to smell ingredients and then taste that beer that was brewed right there is another level again. And I think if we can kind of, walk in every day sort of considerate of that kind of kid in a lolly shop sort of excitement that some people have, it can really help how you go about things as well.
I guess also, sorry, just to say one more thing, I think your venue design plays a really large part in that theatre as well. So, if you don't have any tanks or any brewing equipment on show, how are you counterweighting that? And making sure that people can connect with your craft and your process. Otherwise, there's not a hell of a lot of a differentiating factor between you and the pub down the road that's selling beer and food as well.
Craig, events, a bit of a passion of yours, a little bit. Ran a big one for a while, ran a few. Tell us a little bit about events and Moffat Beach and how important they are to how you do things.
Yeah, I think they're super important. Events are one of my favourite things in the world because you have an idea, you can build it all out in terms of, you mentioned sort of controlling that experience. You can control every element of that experience, and it's a finite thing that you promote it, you market it, people come, they're there, it happens, everyone's shared that moment, and then you move on. And it's amazing in that respect, I think. Sorry, what was the question again, JJ?
Well, it was about events, but I might just segue that into what you're about to talk about, which is the whole experience design of events and the venue.
Yeah, I think someone gave me one of those slides from a presentation years ago, and it was about experience design and how to break it down. And this slide sort of showed like the 5 E's of experience design, and it's one of those things that's just stuck in my head. And if you think about it, okay, you're creating our rock paper scissors competition. Someone might have mentioned this, but we
tell us about the rock paper.
Yeah,
scissors
let's
thing.
go.
We did a rock paper scissors championship. So after I had the shower, I was doing the YouTube, going down the deep dive of Googling the USA Rock Paper Scissors Tournament Championship, and it's hectic event, proper, ESPN commentators, sponsored by Budweiser. Everyone's flinging wrist weapons around, and so I thought, this could be cool because I don't have the Felons budget for Moffat Beach, so my budget's the end bit on the shoestring that keeps the shoestring. So the good thing is everyone can play rock, paper, scissors. All you need is a hand, and most people are blessed with those, 2 of them even. So I thought about this, and you apply this model to it. You go, okay, well, how am I going to apply these 5 E's? The first one is entice. How do I communicate it? How do I promote it? How do I get it out there? You might do a social video that kind of pits your head brewer against your bartender or whatever it might be, build a bit of excitement about it. You taunt people. You say, are you the next rock, paper, scissors champion of Moffat Beach? You get them excited. Then you have this, so entice to enter. They come into the event. What does that experience look like? Maybe there's a fanfare or a championship belt waiting or whatever it might be. They register. Then there's that engage part through the whole event. What does that look like? And that event basically looked like me on a stage in my crazy Sunny Coast tuxedo with a mullet on, yelling at people to 1, 2, 3, go. It was insane. It was very, very popular, went really well. You might think it's a very simple thing, rock, paper, scissors, but the tension builds really quickly in a room full of people watching, and that I can just work that tension. Then you've got the exit part, so as they're leaving, what is it, or as they win the tournament. I gave them a little laminated pocket-size, wallet-size card that had rock, paper, scissors champion. If it's laminated, that makes it official on the back. Very proud to receive that. Then it's extend. So what do you do afterwards? You've got all these email addresses. You can send them an offer the next day saying, hey, sorry, you must have been a bit tired on the scissors or whatever it might be, but hey, here's a discount voucher for the shop or something. And so it's enter or entice, enter, engage, exit, and extend. And if I've applied that model correctly, then it generally turns out to be a pretty good event. That's my model.
Nice one.
That's beautiful.
And none of these kind of theatre or experiences or events or anything are really possible without a great team. And training of that team is obviously integral to the whole operation. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on staff training and how important it is.
Absolutely. I think anyone that knows with me or has ever worked with me knows one thing that I will never sacrifice in a venue would be staff training. And I think it is very easy when times are hard or the venue's quiet is to remove sessions like that. And I would just encourage anyone to just really invest in that area, because I think customer experience training, staff incentives, anything like that, they can have such a huge impact on your top line, the revenue that's coming through the door. And I think, again, sometimes a lot of the focus can be on your kind of bar technical training, and that kind of customer experience side can get a little bit forgotten. So just making sure there's a focus on that. And also, what makes your brewery you? What's your unique selling point? What's your brand all about? As Dean mentioned, what's your why? What's your history? What is your story? And I think that's what people really want to hear. And I think your frontline staff, they're your number one brand ambassadors, and no one's going to be able to tell that story like they can.
Yeah, I think, and it's a little bit like the excitement of walking into a brewery for the first time. I think that we can often get tired of telling the story, but it's actually that people are attracted to in the first place.
Yeah.
So to retell that and teach the team how to tell the story and get them kind of immersed in it is hugely valuable as well. And I think it's a win-win. The team, what we find with training as well is the more we invest in it, the more people obviously get out of it from a personal perspective, and they develop their own skills and knowledge. But the retention piece of that is huge as well. People stick around if they feel like you're investing in them. And training, sometimes it might seem like a chore or something you're imposing on the team, but we find more often than not it's something they can't actually wait to do. Paid, unpaid, regardless, as long as they feel like they're progressing and they're learning. It really is hugely valuable, and it rubs off on the business as well, and has some economic value in the fact that customers are coming in and being educated by our teams as well, which obviously adds a heap of value, and they end up finding a beer that they otherwise wouldn't have found, or people that don't drink beer find beer, and all sorts of things can happen with really great staff training.
Yeah, it's just encouraging communication. Communication's so critical in this line of business. And if your staff member is seeing that you're leading from the front and communicating to them about everything that's coming up over the next week, hour, month, whatever it is, then they're obviously going to be tooled up to pass that on to your customer.
And listening to the team as well. They're the ones on the front line. They know.
Yeah.
They're the first to know what's going on with your business, so making sure you're taking the time to listen to them
Yeah.
and understanding the changes that you make. One example would be we put in a reservation system, a beer farm, which we'd never had before, and that made a huge impact on our food sales in a really positive way, but also negatively impacted our tap beer sales because people weren't sticking around as long. So then just working with the team, how do we encourage takeaway sales, rearranging the venue a little bit, moving the fridge, just kind of working with the front of house team on that.
Yeah, great. As I said before, there's a Mr. Young Prezzo coming up after this with a bit more of a deep dive into data. But Dino, tell us a little bit about how you use point of sale data and other order at table or other data that you can get your hands on to influence how you go about things at Felons.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit controversial. I do believe that contactless ordering is a really valuable tool. And I've just seen it work in ways that have completely blown away my pre-existing ideas of what service should be like. So I'll share a little bit about that with you guys. I know there's that Mr. Yum prezzo afterwards. I swear I'm not getting any royalties. So if you guys are in the room, you can thank me later. So, when we started, it was never about like taking anything away from the customer. It was about offering the customer choice. So we proactively put beacons, me and you as the company that we use, throughout all the tables in the venue, but we also kept all the bars kind of open and serving. And what we noticed was it worked horrifically because our staff were taking about 18 minutes to get somebody a beer who'd just placed an order on the beacon, and that's just absolutely gross. Who wants to wait 18 minutes for a beer that they've ordered on a beacon? And I apologise if anyone's ordered that at Felons and it's taken that long. So we put a whole lot of infrastructure and work into the back of house side of things. We've put in dark bars and all the rest of it. And basically we set ourselves the target of delivering the 3-minute beer, which is basically, you place an order and we'll get that beer to you within a 3-minute window. And what we've seen basically overnight was a 20% increase in revenue. We've seen that so this is giving people the choice. This wasn't taking anything away from them. They could still go up to the bar. We see that there's about 60% utilisation of that platform throughout our whole venue. So more people are opting to use that contactless ordering over going up to the bar. And it varies in different zones throughout our venue. I think there's a lot of venue design that comes into this. And we also notice that there's about an 83% increase in add-on, additional kind of modifier purchases. So if somebody's ordering a cheeseburger, they'll be like, fuck yeah, I'll get some bacon on that. That sounds great. And obviously from an interface perspective, there's some beautiful imagery, there's video, there's 30, 50, 100 words that you can write to convey whatever message that you want to convey about any particular beer. There's a featured product component to it. So yeah, I'm a bit sold on it. Do I think that it's going to take over? No, and that's not really our intention with it. We very much value person-to-person connection, and we need to keep that going above all costs. But 20% additional revenue in a time where business is pretty dicey was a little bit too hard to pass up. So, yeah. If anybody wants to talk further about that, I can chat later.
Yeah, cool. I was the same. It took me a long time to come around to the idea of order at table. I thought the least we could do for people was serve them, take their orders, it being hospitality. But I came around when I had a bit of a mindset shift in that if it's an additional way to order, then it can be a good thing. And we find it in our venues with someone that comes in with their kids without their partner, for example, and they're stuck at a table, they can order at the table and not leave the kids. Despite the fact they might want to leave the kids, they don't want to leave them at a table. We find it at the airport, particularly people travelling on their own, don't want to leave their bags. And we also find that people will often order another beer. Like, you will order a beer before you've finished your previous one, if you can. If it's, but you have to be able to execute it. It has to be as good, at least, as going to the bar from a speed perspective. Otherwise, the whole thing sort of falls apart. And it's not really a labour saver, which some people kind of go into it hoping for. It's more just a revenue generator, but it doesn't necessarily drop the labour, I reckon.
We did notice a 30% increase in spend per head on that platform as well, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, to your point, if you're getting 20% additional revenue, then you need more staff to run that venue. So everybody's kind of winning, really.
Yeah.
And I think the art form is you're actually repurposing some select staff members in your team. You're not relying as your waiter being the star in terms of a delivery of service. Your runners might need to be a little bit more versatile in how they talk about your brand, your glassies, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just a bit of a reimagining of who does what.
So one of the key threads with the whole idea of this discussion is there's the hyper local aspect of it, and from that the community aspect and the immediate community around our venues. And we've all got varying sort of ways that we've tapped into that, ways that we've really been able to elevate the community experience. And yours is one of those. Tell us a little bit about the Southwest Beer Alliance.
Yeah, so it's basically an alliance of the 11 breweries in the Southwest region. And we originally formed together to share resources. Everything's becoming a lot more expensive, and share knowledge as well. But we found that it's really, really important to have kind of a combined voice on a local level. Obviously, we've got the IBA on a national level. In WA, we've got WOB on a state level. But having that local voice, especially at the moment, as a state, we're going through developing the WA craft beer strategy. So we just had a session on that a couple of weeks ago. And I think we found we're much stronger together. And Paul's going to talk about this a little bit later in the conference. But there are a lot of things that have come out of the alliance as well that we perhaps didn't expect to happen. We're about to launch a brewery tour for the Southwest region. We've got an export team that are working on some export collateral. A lot of the Southwest breweries are looking to move into the export markets. We're hopefully bringing the Cert 3 in Brewing to the Southwest TAFE early next year. And we're able to make much more of an impact on our local community in terms of fundraising. We all work together on fundraising brews for Line in the Sand, which all goes towards our kind of coastline restoration. So together we can make a lot more impact on our community than we could individually.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that elevates everybody within that group off the back of sharing resources and marketing and all the rest of it. Craig, you had a similar story with Malula Bars. Tell us
so that was a very fun new event that we put together, which there was a few different event organisers that were approaching the Sunshine Coast, which is going to be the site of obviously the Olympics coming up down the track, and a few different event organisers looking to start new beer festivals or new events on the coast, and it kind of brought a few of the local breweries together. And we got to talking about, rather than commercial event organizer coming in, running a festival. We all pay a registration fee. We all get a clip of the ticket. I completely understand. I am also guilty of this in previous career. Is there a way that we can kind of combine all of our resources and put on a new event for the coast that actually benefits everyone involved, or at least doesn't lose you money? Hence this idea. Mooloolaba bars, it's essentially very heavily influenced by Bendigo on the Hop, but a roving craft beer or roving craft drinks festival around Mooloolaba. So that was a group of breweries that got together, a group of distilleries, a group of the local venues. We then sought and secured funding from Sunshine Coast Council, was part of then integrated into a bigger event called the Curated Plate, and it ended up going gangbusters. Gangbusters, about 1,000 people on the day, which for a new event on the Sunshine Coast is pretty good. But no one lost money out of it, basically, which was the aim. And it activated a lot of people, bringing them into the Mooloolaba region, connected a lot of breweries and distilleries with a lot of new clients and customers, and a lot of people with our beers and products. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we are running out of time, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of little things on that front as well. I think the idea of collaboration in a whole range of areas can really kind of be a 1 + 1 = 3 type situation in terms of whether it's sort of charitable collaborations. We do one with Scarf, which is an amazing charity in Melbourne that places refugees into hospitality jobs, and they train them, and we support them. And the kind of benefit that gives, and the buy-in that we get from our team who help train these people and send them out into the workplace is massive. Like it is incredible how it resonates with people. But I think also just collaborations with on-prem customers as well is a huge thing. We've made beers with pubs or groups of pubs or what have you, and they've come in and spent the day with us, and we've laid it on thick with the food and drink and whatever, and they're sort of hearts and minds kind of relationships, and those people become ambassadors for us out in the wild, selling our beer for us as well, which is one of the huge benefits that we've got from the brew pubs and tap rooms that we have. So that probably brings us to the end of this discussion, because we are running out of time, but we do need to leave a little bit of time for any questions, and we've got there's another session starting here in 3 minutes, so we'll throw it out there. Jess has got a mic up there, so anyone that wants to throw a question at one of the panellists, please put your hand up.
We're obviously available outside of this as well to chat if anybody wants to throw some questions around. I feel like we only just got started.
Yeah, we did. We didn't get to everything, but
yeah.
No questions. All right.
You answered them all, JJ. There you go.
Yeah,
Happy days.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll see you for a beer.